Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to our Zero Waste webinar. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sophia Vicanti. I'm an AmeriCorps member serving with Conservation Nebraska, the Common Ground program. A little bit about Conservation Nebraska. We are a nonprofit organization. We serve throughout the entire state. So I currently serve in the southeast region of Nebraska, but there are members located all over. We serve in our designated communities and try to find out the environmental concerns that people in that community have or want to know more about. Then we organize events like this with the goal of educating those community members on what they care about or what they would like to know, because knowledge is power. So in this event, we're going to be learning about the basics of recycling. Before we begin, I have some things to tell you. So you are muted and we can't see you, but if you have questions, you can type them in the chat box and whenever you'd like, and we would get to them. And there's also a Q&A if you're interested in that. The event will be recorded to be posted later on YouTube for people that can't attend tonight. And lastly, there will be a very short survey at the end that will pop up at the end of the webinar. Make sure you complete it as it will help us to continue to serve in your communities. So tonight's guest speaker is Leah Meyer. Leah Meyer is a program director with the Nebraska Recycling Council and is a true advisor registered with GBCI. She works with municipalities and recycling centers to support their goals in improving resource management, including administering NRC recycling equipment grants and managing the organization's waste reduction and recycling grant assessing hub and spoke programs. Welcome, Leah Meyer.
Thanks, Sophia. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone here, and already seeing and appreciating the comments coming in about why you're here. Also, let me know, this was promoted to Hastings residents, Adams County residents, but Sophia was explaining to me too that this goes out to all of Nebraska. So let me know if you are, I see an Elkhorn folk. Yes, hi Stacy. Exactly, so that way we can focus on what's general, what's not. Hi Omaha, thanks Julie. And from Lincoln, so that's excellent. Well, definitely this is for you. I will be answering some Hastings specific at the end here, but this is applicable to all of recycling. So as Sophia was saying, I am a program director with the Nebraska Recycling Council. What we are is a nonprofit that works in support of all resource management and waste reduction in Nebraska, as well as the Great Plains region. So we are not recyclers ourselves. I have a question here from an anonymous attendee about broken crockery. It's really going to be dependent on your region. Where can we recycle, or can it be recycled? What we'll be going in today is more of what one might term mechanically recycled material, but in the interest of zero waste, we will also be talking about recycling systems and the broader goals or strategies of resource management. So where things can be recycled or returned or reused is at this point going to be region dependent. And how can we improve our systems? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So thank you for these comments. And the other question, what recommendations for towns that do not offer recycling? We'll definitely be getting into that too. So my role, and Sophia, please, since I'm minimizing the chat on my screen, jump in and there'll be natural breaks that we can get some Q&A in here.
Sounds
But
good.
my role or my projects here at NRC really lend itself to this conversation because I am doing assessment in Nebraska, broken down by the different regions, who has access to recycling, who doesn't, what kind of recycling, where are its limits, what haulers operate, what the budget is. So we know a lot. We know where we have really strong access to resource management and where we need improvements. And what my goal here is today is to contextualize the issues for you and what you as individuals and as community members, where you can go with that for next steps. So moving into it, the concept of zero waste as a whole. So us as an organization, our motto is it's waste nothing. And to that end, we are so much more than just recycling. We follow the Zero Waste International Alliance's definition, design and management of products and processes to eliminate and avoid the volume and toxicity of waste that are going into our landfills, so as not to burn or bury them. We want to conserve, reuse them, so that they're not a threat to our own health as people, to humans or animals. But what does that actually mean? This slide here about the zero waste hierarchy is where I really want everybody here that's here tonight and listening and here in the future from when this is taking place, to start thinking in systems and beyond ourselves as individuals. Expand the concept of recycling to reuse, reduction, composting, rot, as some are, pin it to that R alliteration, and of course rethinking or redesigning what the product is in the first place. You see that we kind of live here in the this middle section. Recycling, I would actually put compost at a level above recycling, just for the benefits it gives. Is just additionally, and as well as it can be most frequently done right in our own communities, as opposed to being transported like so much of recycling is. Material recovery and residuals management, so stabilized landfilling. That residuals management, that landfilling is just context again that I want to be sure everyone is aware of, the difference between a managed landfill and an open dump. So landfills are, they are constructed so that the materials that are going into it, they don't secrete into the earth and into the groundwater. They're monitored to see if any of that material has entered unbeknownst to the landfill managers. They're mitigated when that does happen. They are monitored for 30 years beyond its closure. So then that's why you are also seeing landfill bans on things like hazardous waste, so that it doesn't seep into our groundwater. And that's why it's included in the hierarchy. Unacceptable would be incineration and or waste to energy. You know, of course, there's an argument there of, well, it's burning our trash is better than burning virgin materials. And while that's true, I think this is a point where we can circle back to that rethink, redesign. Why do we have to burn anything for our energy? And why do we shouldn't be accepting the most impactful, you know, most consequential method of developing our energy when we have so many other options at our disposal. And in terms of thinking through our systems and when we think about access, one point that I may return to several times tonight is the concept of individual versus community-based action and collective action. So, being conscious that it is a privilege to live sustainably. Oftentimes, when you're paying fair, you're paying the price for fair labor, skilled labor, local labor, that's going to look higher than the prices that we're accustomed to. But even beyond price, there is a considerable amount of time that goes into what one might think of sustainable living. So if you're purchasing in bulk and you're cooking all of your meals, that is very time intensive. If you are researching where to get your clothing secondhand, for example, at high quality, maybe it's local, again, very time intensive. And if you're looking to properly dispose of your material, again, very time costly. And so if you are an individual that's working multiple jobs, if you're managing a disability, if you're caring for other children or adults, or working in your community, sometimes that individual action to live sustainably, it's not going to be accessible for many in our communities. So in this way, the goal of an organization like the Nebraska Recycling Council or national organizations like the Recycling Partnership, the goal of making it as easy to recycle or properly dispose of what you have, return it, reuse it, reduce it. This is it should be as easy as it is to dispose of something as we traditionally are to landfill it, to trash something. So it should be as easy to recycle as it is to dispose of something. And at this point, the Recycling Partnership believes only 50% of the US has that. In Nebraska, it is most certainly less, because that access would mean that either the municipality runs recycling at curbside, or it's contracted with a private hauler. And for example, an assessment we just finished here most recently in the Southeast found that only 30%, less than 30%, I believe, of communities had curbside recycling that was built into their municipal services. Even a city like Lincoln, we have open hauling. So we have to, as residents, subscribe to our recycling, and that can be prohibitive if it's not already built into your taxes. It costs more per resident. You have to make the choice to curbside recycle. Fortunately, and especially in smaller towns, drop-off recycling is accessible. And is a really great option. But again, just addressing the true cost, the access of recycling, start thinking in systems, really rethinking and redesigning. So before we move on to, well, no, let's finish this one and then we'll move into conceptions, but I'll take some questions before then. So what can individuals do? Of course, start in your own home. I would never, ever say that your own individual actions are not worth it or whatnot. They are absolutely worth it. Start in your own home, and just even beyond your individual impact, educate your family, friends, and neighbors. Start composting in your backyard. Something like our last statewide waste characterization study was completed in 2009. So it's very old compared to the rest of the US, who are doing it more on an every 4 or 5 year basis. But something around 40% of what goes into our landfill is compostable. So think about your own trash, your own trash. What is organic in there that you could recycle or you could compost in your backyard? I mean, this is so impactful. If you're just looking at volume or weight, composting is going to reduce your trash extensively, more than you would ever think. And of course, as I'll point out again and again, it can be a privilege to compost. Some, like the city of Omaha, has a compost club if you're living in an apartment or you have housing restrictions that don't allow you to have a small composter. But even something like a worm bin that you can put on a deck, that's a great option too. But just be mindful, it may not be, compost at least may not be accessible to everyone. So say that's not accessible to you. Encourage sustainability in your workplace, your school, your place of worship, wherever you're hanging out. I am going to minimize this and show you our green team resources, but starting sustainability initiatives in in these places where you are most active, where you're spending most of your time, hugely impactful, has a real ripple effect. Because as people learn about recycling and other sustainability actions you can take, they're taking that into their own homes. Contact your favorite brands and restaurants, ask what their sustainability plans are and how they can increase their recycled content. So this is really exciting. In 2019, the Nebraska Recycling Council with the Association of Plastic Recyclers, a national organization, we did a survey of plastic manufacturers based out of Nebraska. 43% said that in asking them what would encourage them to increase post-consumer materials, so recycled plastics within their manufacturing as opposed to virgin plastics, 43% said that requests from customers would be their greatest incentive, while another 43% said that their greatest incentive would be to keep a competitive edge or competitive position over their competitors. And of course, those go hand in glove. So if people are demanding more recycled content in their favorite brands, that is going to motivate more people of a certain type to buy that product, thus increasing a competitive edge over their competitors again. And so, yes, it's very valuable. They don't hear from their customers enough, and it's impactful if you can contact your brands and restaurants and just ask, what are you doing? Doesn't hurt, cost you nothing, and they're listening, and this is what they would take in. And then forming a community green team, much like point number 2, except that this is in your own municipalities. So I'm going to minimize this. You can still see me. Oh, yes. And wanted to pull up. So we as an organization have free green team training, help assisting you in setting up short and long-term goals. And we have a whole toolkit available to you with samples of a charter, different size communities, and let me see here, get this out of the way. We have an entire packet with draft forms on how to get started. Lots of resources, even down to here. I just pulled up this agenda, just the most basic things you would need to get started in your home, in your, not your home, but your community, your schools, your business, really good stuff, and it goes very far. So just pull this up again. Okay, so before we move on to pitfalls, recycling misconceptions and pitfalls, let me just see. So does anyone have any questions on zero waste or starting a green team? Over here. Yes, my background is in public policy. So I have a master's in public administration, and prior to this, I worked in higher education and veteran services. How can we help people abusing, recycling, throwing garbage, and littering? So this is called contamination, and it does increase the cost of recycling overall. There are a lot of strategies your community can use depending on what it is. So if it's drop-off containers, if it's curbside recycling, I don't want to take too much time in this presentation here, but we do have a full toolkit for both, or the we piggyback off the recycling partnership and can get more into that. If you're talking about individual, then this is exactly what this is about. Get into these green teams, these community groups, and as you're doing this yourself, start educating your neighbors. The city of Lincoln has a bin buddy program, and many of our small communities will use the scouts that'll just hang out outside of the drop-off containers and at set times educate people going through here. Or prevent illegal dumping, which especially in the South Central region, I've been hearing from a lot of clerks that this more than budget dumping is the larger issue. Okay, so let's see here. What time do we have? Almost 7. So this is a 16-minute video, and so we won't get fully into this. But recycling misconceptions and pitfalls. It doesn't get recycled. They send it all to a landfill. Nothing could be more false. They want your material. And in fact, so many of our smaller recycling centers will shut down because they don't have enough material coming in. They can't build up enough stock to move the product to get paid for the product that they've moved. And then it's all stagnant and has to get shut down. And that's a very basic way of explaining what I'll get into more detail here coming up. But there's more than enough recycling to go around. Our board member, Danielle Easdale from First Star Fiber, she always says that while they, First Star's, the materials recovery facility has competitors, there is always enough recycling to go around at this point. So you can see here how it's moved, mechanically sorted material is moved at a smaller center like what you might have in the South Central region and Hastings and Woodwards. It's a lot more hand picking. That's how the city of Beatrice is. That's how Falls City, when they get going again, it's people hand sorting. Holdridge, the Oxford MNIS, they're hand sorting. So wide breadths in how things get recycled at a facility, but they do get recycled. Something only like 20% of what goes to a recycling center gets landfilled because it was never supposed to be there in the first place. These are the things that plastic bags, cutlery, plastic cutlery, baby food pouches. I'm just giving away my answers for our kind of Q&A game later, but that's why it gets forwarded on. And that slows down the process. It can ick up some materials, so it can't be used. Contamination is a big deal and why sometimes things get landfilled. I will say before moving off this slide, sometimes I hear people say, I watched the recycling truck and I saw them look inside and, if they come together, say the trash and the recycling truck, and they threw it in the trash. Well, sometimes what you're seeing is they will do a visual assessment and see if it's too dirty to actually be recycled. So if you have lots of plastic bottles, good material to be recycled, but it's mixed in with a bunch of dirty diapers, they're just going to pitch the whole thing because it's not worth it time-wise, but it's also not safe for the workers to pick through it and get all of the, the disgusting material out of there. So, needles, diapers, if there's too much food residue, people just threw off, a whole half gallon of mayonnaise because it's recyclable, but it's halfway full of food. They can't do anything with that. So making sure in your region specifically this is being, you're complying with how they want their material, that's going to be critical in getting it recycled. Okay, let's go forward here. Recycling is universal. I can recycle the same things in Northeast Nebraska as I can in the Panhandle. Not the case either. So in a lot of communities, you can only recycle, say, plastic 1s and 2s. If you're here from the Hastings, Adams region, you can recycle plastics 1 through 7. And it's totally going to be based on the end markets the recycling center has, the relationships the recycling center has, where they're getting their highest margins for the material. So in Laurel, Nebraska, small recycling center that gets handpicked. This center has their community members so well trained, they're even peeling the paper off the tins because that's where that manager, his end market, prefers it that way. He's also very close to Millennium Materials Recovery Facility in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So he's got his own relationships with them. Whereas in Imperial, close to Colorado, they're going to have they're not going to be able to recycle in the same end markets generally. So maybe they're recycling the same things, but they might have different ways they want to prepare it. So it gets confusing, especially if you're moving communities. You'll need to check with your local, your utilities manager, your hauler, however they've set up their recycling. Okay. Biggest misconception, some of the biggest misconceptions. We get a lot of people that remembered, I guess we'll call it like the heyday of recycling, where recycling should be free. They're selling my cans in paper. I know they're getting a lot of money on this. And there may have been a time when recycling end markets, so the places that are processing this material, maybe they were closer or there were more existent. This is very multifaceted. So let me provide some context here on what you're looking at on the screen. So from May of last year to this time this year, I pulled these numbers on Friday. What you're looking at is from the top left, the cost of plastics 1 through 7, commingled, baled, so not separated, all in one big cube. The average for our region, for Nebraska, is about $2 for, I believe it's a ton, to pick up those that material. Regionally, you know, it was at its highest $3. And we're right about the national average there too. So transportation costs being what they are, if you're here from the Adams region, I talked with the primary recycler there, Woodward's. It costs him $160 a ton to transport their materials to where their end market is. So it costs them money to bale, commingle their plastic materials and send them down to where they will eventually be bought and then put to their final use, likely melted down for pellets for probably plastic film. Because of it's low grade material mixed with high grade material, there's not too much that they can do with it. Contrast that with HDPE, and HDPE natural. So that's going to be your milk jugs. Last year they were at $35. Again, I wish I had the unit here, but I'm going to say a ton. All the way up net to right now where they're at around $75, even $80 a ton. So look at the difference. If you have the capacity to separate out your plastics, and if you can get enough of the product in a fast enough time so that you can get paid for this, you could see that this is actually like natural plastics right now is making more than even aluminum, which is always high value, generally speaking. So you can get return for it. Where cost gets eaten up is how far do you have to transport this material to to actually, for someone that's actually going to buy it. I mean, there's a lot of strategies you can use, especially for smaller communities. You can work with another center and, you know, build up your loads together. A lot of brokerages will facilitate those relationships. And something that we as an organization are doing, especially with the materials recovery facilities, the MRFs, the largest processors, we are looking at how can we bring these markets here. So I know I get asked a lot about the concept of China sword, and China's not buying our recyclable materials anymore. So recycling's dead. And that's, again, not the case, not at all. Yes, China has created very high standards for the materials that they want to accept. Some have said impossibly high at the start. Now, materials recovery facilities, now these processing centers, where a lot of these recycling centers will sell their bales to become, you know, reprocessed and then sent out. They are saying that they are having to work harder to build up that higher quality of bales. And it's not just to sell to China or overseas, it's that our like, say, let's just say plastics, our plastic end markets, our mills are demanding that higher quality now too. And it's also for them to be able to work internationally as well. So where now, while our Nebraska sites were likely, and I couldn't say for sure, but they were likely not selling overseas, they were selling to our inland markets, but our coastal regions were selling overseas. Makes sense, right? But when China stopped accepting lower grade recyclables or lower grade bales that had full of trash and contamination in it, those coastal processing centers started selling to where us in the Midwest would normally sell to. So it became so that it was, you know, it really bottomed out the market because everyone's trying to sell to the same processing centers and same end markets and same mills. So they had their pick. The supply was too high. So it's recovering now, and more end markets are being built. So Wisconsin just opened a gigantic new paper mill. Plastic mills are opening up, especially in the Southeast. You know, Georgia, the Carolinas, big plastic industry, big papers happening in Texas and Arkansas, lots of metals in Missouri and Kansas. But it's important we realize this because we don't have that as much in Nebraska. There are some in Kansas, there's happening in Iowa. We're working to develop it here so it doesn't cost Woodward's $160 to send, you know, per ton to send their plastics just to offload it. So I know, just want to make sure that's a big concept. I just want to be able to make sure that I'm not missing. Okay. And then I added cardboard in here so you can see the effects of the pandemic from last year was up to $120, and then all the way down, you know, crashed again to about 50 midway. Please understand too, oil is subsidized at $3 trillion globally. So virgin plastics can be made very inexpensively. And recycled material is not subsidized. They don't have the same kind of support as virgin materials. And so that's another reason why these prices are fluctuating so extremely on such a frequent basis. So you'll also see centers will hold their material, which can degrade the material. And then maybe if they hold on to it long enough, they won't get as good of a return on it. So they are extremely challenged. It's a very tricky business, and there's not a lot of support for it. So there's a lot of policy changes that can be implemented. And again, just think it's important, again, to contextualize everything that these centers are up against and everything that they're trying to do. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, and then finally, a little bit more fun, and I'll ask for Chelsea's help. Just going to talk about big offenders. This is just a sampling. So I think Chelsea has a Q&A. Oh, perfect. So which of the following are not recyclable? I don't know, Chelsea, do I have to answer, or how do we how do we kind of get this going?
Yeah, so they're answering right now. About a third of them have voted already. And then I'll pull up the results at the end.
While people are answering, I'd love to answer this question here. All in. So it's also called single stream. I love that you call it all in because I believe it was the Recycling Partnership. They also did a survey and they asked, do you know what single stream means? And most people answered no. So you hear a lot of recyclers, even us, will say single stream. And that's not accessible. People don't know what it means. So all in, all the things that your recycler says in the bin. Yes, you can. Yes, you really can toss everything in. This works out really great in municipalities that have larger recycling centers like Lincoln and Omaha because of the way it starts. It's going to be like all dumped onto a conveyor belt. It's going to be rattled up and down so that the heavier stuff falls through and the papers and cardboard stay at the top. So that's how it gets separated out. A community like Wayne, Nebraska has said that they would prefer to use single, like a sort, and that's separated bins. And that's because things like paper can get soiled. So even because maybe you've washed out your mayonnaise or milk jug and it's seeping into the paper and that paper doesn't dry in time and it just turns into mush. So there you run the risk of that. But yes, you can really toss everything in. Glass, on the other hand, is most municipalities will not accept glass in single stream in an all-in format because it breaks, creates danger for the people sorting it. There's other options for that. Okay. What does the red mean? Just that it was the highest.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk through these. Paper towels, not recyclable, big offender. It's too flimsy. It'll just disintegrate in the process of recycling. Don't include your paper towels in here, compost them instead. No styrofoam. Now, and especially in your all-in single stream format, if you have a cart or a bin, no styrofoam. That said, especially if you are in the Omaha region, Plastilite will accept expanded polystyrene packing foam. So a lot of times TVs will arrive in this, or coolers. Take them to Plastilite. They have the only public drop off. It's right by the airport in North Omaha. Produce bags, grocery bags, plastic grocery bags, even the film around your toilet paper, like in the big, and your paper towels, those can return to the retailer. And if you're in the Hastings Adams area, Adams County area, Walmart takes those, Allen's takes those. But yes, in general, like Home Depot, Lowe's, I mean, your big box stores, they use a lot of this film and they return it. Call ahead first, of course, but in general, you can take your film to a retailer. I threw this on here because I've been seeing this increasing a lot. Baby food pouches, not recyclable. I know those caps look like high quality, and they are, but it's just poor quality plastic. If you're in the Omaha region and Lincoln a little bit, and actually Ogallala now, those energy bags are a really good use for that. Orange hefty energy bags. And then shredded paper. This is, I guess, a bit of a gotcha because it's going to be very dependent on where you are. And First Star recently said, if you're in Omaha, said that they would start taking shredded paper, but put them in a clear plastic trash bag because they want to be able to see what's in it. But shredded paper, business cards, anything smaller than what they say about the size of a tennis ball, don't put that in your curbside. When it gets to the sort facility, it's like a ticker tape parade. So bag it if your facility accepts that. So that goes back to that misconception of I can recycle here as I can there. Call your center, call your area center, find out what your center is, call your hauler. Make sure, because you don't want to cost these people any more time or money than they're already spending on this process. Okay. And if you're in the Hastings Woodward area, questions have been coming to us from Adams County residents. Woodward's does accept plastics 1 through 7 in their curbside, but not as part of their drop-off program. And I really want to, again, contextualize this for you all, make this clear. In their curbside program, it's only $6 a month, but people have to sign on to it. It's subscription based, so it's not contracted to the city. You sign on for recycling if you want it. People were coming from, all the way down from Kansas, just from all over, using Woodward's to drop off all of their plastic, and good quality plastic. But the way Woodward's does it is to bale that commingled 1 through 7. And as you saw, that doesn't fetch a very good price, and he was spending a lot of money on it. So you can recycle plastics 1 through 7 through Woodward's if you are a paying customer of their hauling service, and you're getting your stuff picked up. They are also very unique, honestly. So you see aluminum cans, tin and steel cans. They'll even accept animal pet food cans, and that's not always the case because those cans have a lining on them. They'll also accept anything from like aerosol cans, even spray paint, as long as it's empty. Again, that's pretty unique. So they have maybe relationships with end markets that some of our other recycling facilities in Nebraska don't. That's why it's also different. It's not exactly universal, just little tweaks that can really get you into trouble. So do be conscious of that. And very excitingly, they also have compost. They've got a really great compost operation. So please, if you're not aware of it, contact them because they do a really great job organic composting, and as well as mulching. So good options, really support them. Bags, Some folks have asked us, can bags go to Woodward's? No. Just like we saw in the last, big offender slide, take those to Walmart, take those to Allen's, don't take them to Woodward's. They don't want plastic bags. Okay, and from there, let me open the chat. Let me open the question. Sorry if I'm a little clunky with this because I'm not as good at Zoom as I wish I was. Okay, compostable packaging. Very good question. So my recommendation, don't include them in your recycling. If you're in Omaha, my recommendation is to go to, I don't know if I'm like allowed to say a specific business, but Hillside has a compost club and they can accept that material. The issue with compostable packaging is that it needs to be in an actual facility or a place that can get it hot enough that they can break down. It can break down. So it's likely not going to break down in your backyard compost. And in terms of it being recycled, if it went into like a traditional, like a mill that breaks it down, I have heard that it melts down into more of like a gummy sort of, really gums up the works. I am not, until you can actually compost in your own backyard, I tend to steer clear of compostable packaging, like the clamshell clear plastic packaging. Now, the utensils, those actually can break down a little bit more, but remember what I said earlier about living sustainably can be, I often think about the privilege I have in being able to research this or taking the time to research which products break down. So nobody likes that answer that you have to look up each individual one, but you do. Compostable material is kind of a tricky game. So especially if you're fortunate enough to live in the Omaha area or in an area where you have more professional, like high heat composters, definitely take advantage of it. But be cautious. Don't throw compostable packaging in with your recycling and expect it to be recycled in the same way. It's not fair to, especially if you're more rural, for those recycling centers. So let's see, that one's good. Can you continue to recycle? Yeah, so can you continue to recycle products made from recycled post-consumer products? Nobody likes it, but it totally depends. If it's turned into, so if HDPE milk jugs, if it's pure, it can be made back into that material. But if it's being blended with other kinds of plastics, likely no. What you can do and what First Star is currently doing with that energy bag program is break it down. They can make more plastic film with it. Or right now they're making a plastic lumber. Fantastic. If you know anything about the, again, two kind of like important context is something like anywhere between 30 to 40% of raw materials coming from the earth are being used in construction. So if we can divert that plastic material and use it for our construction materials, that's all the better for us. But again, I like to start thinking about how can we avoid this plastic in the first place. So once again, it depends a little bit, but it's also important to weigh these things, weigh both of these. Phone books, are they considered paper or newspaper when recycling? I find a lot of plastic containers, packaging, bottle caps do not have numbers on them. When in doubt, do throw it out. Bottle caps are made of metal. I worked with someone from Waste Connections who has said, yeah, throw your bottle caps in because especially if depending on where they're processed, the magnets will can like divert them into where they're supposed to go. But if you're in a hand sorted, if you're in a recycling center, a smaller rural center that's hand sorting, they may, you know, throw out anything small or that's not especially worthwhile. So yeah, packaging, if it doesn't have a number on them, I would actually say to go ahead and pitch it. Again, unless you are in an area like Omaha or Lincoln that has the orange bag program, and then you can put it in there to be turned into plastic lumber. Okay, can you not recycle styrofoam with the recycling? So thank you for this question. Correct, you cannot recycle that. It's going to say plastics number 6, and that is one of the biggest, most misleading things in, I believe, in the plastics industry, which is being worked on at a federal policy level now. Very misleading. Those numbers mean that it's made from that material. Not necessarily that it can be recycled. So that symbol that says it's plastics number 6, it's got the chasing arrows, that just means that it's made of that kind of plastic, not necessarily that it can be recycled. And certainly it's going to be dependent on your region. So thank you for that question. Styrofoam is a troubling and difficult issue. Okay. Regarding phone books, so they are considered paper. There is, again, call your center, call your facility, see what they want you to do with them. There is instructions on most phone books, and anywhere that I've talked with have said, yeah, we'll take them, but I would hate to make a blanket statement on them. A lot of times, if you're here in Hastings, here in Adams County, Woodward's has great white shredding next to it. A lot of times shredding companies will take it. Call ahead. You know, you never want to overload or burden these centers with things that they can't take, and wish cycle, which is what a lot of people call it. Okay. What happens to the produce bags when returned to the retailer? So it's called the WRAP program. I believe it's WRAAP. I would hate to say the wrong ones, but it's called the WRAP program. And it's returned to their distributor. And much like what I've been describing with First Star, it's, you know, plastic film, thin plastic. If you can poke your thumb through it, they say don't send it on to a recycling center. You can probably send it on to the WRAP program, and these the retailers, as always, call ahead, don't assume, but it's melted down, turned into more film, and that's why they really like the clear stuff, because it's consistent product. Yes, compost paper towels. What are the alternatives of a landfill? Like when we think about a zero waste society, so my vision for this, being able to being more consistent. So we have all these different types of plastics. How can we make these plastics more consistent, more in line, more recyclable? How can we best use our organics to their best effect? I would like there to be more recycling centers, but maybe not more than, but as much as I want there to be more recycling centers, I want there to be more compost facilities. And there is such a huge demand for it too. I have a composter in the Columbus region who's getting calls from feedlots out of York, butchers, especially in the region, because it's hard to, animal waste and animal byproduct is hard to can't go in all in prose, but yes, it's definitely, it takes a policy shift. Because it goes so far beyond mechanically recycled materials, the traditionally recycled materials. You know, look around at anything from like mailboxes to the clothes that we're wearing that's more often than not made out of polyester, which is a plastic blend. What does that look like to have, to know where to be able to take that, or to have clothes that would naturally decompose? You know, like down to my glasses have resin, have plastic components in it. I mean, just everything has materials that are not going to last, but we need to find something to do with them. So it's really looking at our products. How can we repair them? How can we reuse them? A landfill-free society looks at redesigning our products before they, you know, before they ever hit our shelves. Well, I'll kind of leave it at that right now. Okay, more questions. While you're coming up with your last questions, again, I hope, my great wish is, and I really also should have put my contact up here. Let me do that right now. .org. Call me. This is my personal, which that's neither here nor there. It's just that I'm kind of in between our offices. And so, and I say offices, I mean our current home base and my own home office. Best way to reach me is my phone and email. And please, as you're looking through these materials, I entreat you to go to our website, go to our community toolkit, how to start a green team, getting involved with your community, with your, you know, your policymakers. What is unique to your community that you specifically need? It's going to look different for everyone, and we're happy to help. I'm happy to help, so I'm eager to talk with any of you.
Yes, so, well, thank you so much for Leah for joining us this Sunday night. Personally, for me, what you said about China was really interesting. I'll have to tell my sister about that because
look it up. Yeah,
she's always telling me recycling is fake and stuff like that.
No, if all of you, please take that message, take it, spread it in your homes, your communities. Recycling's not dead. Recycling is not fake. But there are a lot of things that we can do beyond recycling to live more sustainably, because it goes so much farther than that. So much farther than that.
I have a short survey for you to fill out. It'll just take you 1 minute and it will help us with our future events. And while you're filling this out, I wanted to thank you so much for coming tonight. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. Thanks again for Leah for putting together this presentation for us. We'll be continuing to do more events every month, so keep an eye out on Facebook and Instagram for the next one. And I hope you all had an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If I log off, can they still answer, or are we?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to take off, everyone. Hope to hear from you in email.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good night.